He didn't just steal money. He stole trust, security, and the warmth of a tight-knit community. James Hartley, the HOA president of Pine Grove, claimed the budget was drained while secretly funneling funds to renovate his brother's private condo and cashing out through a sham contractor. But one eagle-eyed accountant, Sarah Mitchell, unraveled his scheme, igniting a firestorm that would change everything. Buckle up for a tale of betrayal, defiance, and a neighborhood's fight for justice that'll leave you questioning who you can trust. Down in the quiet corner of Miami-Dade County lies Pine Grove, a modest condo complex with neatly trimmed lawns and friendly mailbox chats. It wasn't glamorous, but it had heart, until the summer of 2022, when cracks began to show. Leaking roofs turned kitchens into waterfalls, rusted railings peeled like old paint, and the front gate lights stayed dark, cloaking the entrance in shadows. Residents, many elderly and on fixed incomes, grew restless. Where were their dues going? Why were repairs ignored? Enter James Hartley, 64, the silver-haired HOA president who oozed authority. A retired bank manager, he carried a leather binder and a polished smile that silenced doubts. At a tense HOA meeting, he adjusted his glasses and declared, "The maintenance fund is stretched thin. We're doing all we can." His words were smooth, practiced, and just enough to keep the room at bay. Residents nodded, reluctant but trusting. After all, James had run the board for years. He was their rock. Or so they thought. Behind the scenes, James was orchestrating a betrayal. Weeks before that meeting, he approved a $3,150 emergency maintenance expense from the HOA's reserves. On paper, it looked legit. In reality, it paid for a plumbing overhaul in his brother's private condo. No notice, no approval, no discussion. The invoice vanished into the budget like a ghost, while Pine Grove's roofs still leaked and lights stayed off. James shook hands, smiled, and played the part of a leader, knowing the rules didn't apply to him. For a while they didn't. By September, the Florida heat matched the residents' frustration. At another packed HOA meeting, James stood unfazed, flipping through spreadsheets. "All expenditures are verified and in order," he said, his voice steady as stone. But Sarah Mitchell, a newly elected HOA vice president and seasoned accountant, wasn't buying it. With 30 years of auditing under her belt, she spotted a red flag, a vague $3,150 payment labeled "Emergency Infrastructure Support" to an unknown plumbing company. No work order, no tenant complaint, no transparency. The next morning, Sarah called the company. "Can you confirm the address for this invoice?" she asked. The receptionist's reply stopped her cold. 305 Oak Lane, Apartment 2B. A private unit. Requested by James Hartley. Urgent family matter. Sarah's pen froze. That was James's brother's condo, not common property. Her heart raced. This wasn't a mistake, it was deliberate. She hung up, the weight of betrayal sinking in. Sarah's investigation snowballed. Digging through HOA records, she found another bombshell. A $12,400 payment to Peak Roofing Solutions, a contractor supposedly prepping roof repairs. But no one had seen workers, permits, or even a ladder. The company, barely a year old, was registered to a family friend of James's, with no license or legitimacy. It was a front, and the money was gone. In total, James had siphoned over $15,550 from a fund scraped together by retirees and single parents who skipped luxuries to pay dues. The community erupted. Emergency meetings brimmed with outrage. Residents like Helen Carter, a retired nurse, shared gut-wrenching stories. "I cut my grocery budget to pay dues, and his brother's condo gets a fancy new sink?" James vanished, skipping calls, dodging emails, and finally resigning with a curt and signed letter citing personal matters. His condo was soon taped shut, a legal notice pinned to the door. The man who once ruled Pine Grove was gone, leaving a trail of lies. Sarah didn't back down. Night after night, she pored over records, building an airtight case. She marched it to the Miami-Dade police, laying out invoices, bank statements, and fake vendor trails. The investigation stretched nearly 2 years, but in April 2025, justice struck. James Hartley was arrested for grand theft, facing up to 20 years. At a press conference, the state attorney didn't mince words. "This isn't just about money. It's about abusing power and betraying those you swore to serve." The trial was a spectacle. James, once untouchable, sat hunched in a gray suit, his confidence eroded. When asked if he authorized the funds for his brother's condo, he nodded. Yes. He was sick, his place was falling apart. He said, his voice hollow. The courtroom froze. No gasps, just heavy silence. The prosecutor's retort was razor sharp. That money wasn't yours to give. It belonged to your neighbors. James's gaze drifted, detached, as if the weight of his actions landed everywhere but on him. The verdict hit like thunder. Guilty, 8 years in prison, no early release. Pine Grove residents in the back row exchanged quiet nods, not of joy, but of closure. Outside, a photo of James's brother's renovated condo, gleaming tiles, chromed fixtures, went viral, juxtaposed against Pine Grove's crumbling halls. It sparked fury online. Was James a desperate brother or a calculated thief? Comment sections exploded with debates. He stole from retirees. Versus. He was helping family. Haven't we all bent rules? The scandal didn't end with James. The former HOA board, which had signed off on his schemes without question, faced scrutiny. We didn't know, they claimed, but residents remembered their silence, the rushed votes, the unchecked invoices. At a packed meeting, 74-year-old veteran Thomas Reed stood, his voice trembling with rage. You didn't just lose money. You lost our dignity. You didn't ask questions because it was easier. The room fell silent, the truth undeniable. The board's complicity stung almost as much as James's theft. Pine Grove needed healing, and Sarah Mitchell became its beacon. Unanimously elected interim president, she launched a full financial audit, introduced dual verification for expenses, and built an online portal for real-time budget transparency. Residents, once apathetic, flooded meetings, volunteered for repairs, and formed oversight committees. Leaky roofs were patched, lights flickered back on, and trust began to mend, not overnight, but receipt by receipt, vote by vote. On sentencing day, Pine Grove didn't stay indoors. Neighbors gathered on the front lawn, unprompted, with folding chairs and coffee cups. Kids biked in circles, their laughter cutting through the tension. A banner waved proudly. We are not an ATM. We are a community. As dusk fell, residents clapped, not for James's downfall, but for their rebirth. Sarah stood quietly, watching new lights glow along walkways she'd fought to restore. The truth had won, not because of promises, but because one woman dared to ask questions. This isn't just a story of theft, it's a battle over trust, accountability, and what it takes to rebuild. Was James Hartley a villain or a flawed man caught in a desperate act? Was the board's silence as guilty as his actions? And what would you do if your community's trust was shattered? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's spark a debate. Share your take on bending rules for family versus betraying those who depend on you. Hit that like button, subscribe for more gripping stories, and let's keep the conversation alive.